They said the asylum was abandoned, yet the walls still remember. At night, the air shifts, carrying voices no one alive should hear. Doors groan when no one touches them. Shadows move where no light should fall. Would you dare step inside a place where minds were broken and some never found their way out? The asylum was built in the late 1800s, a towering complex of stone and steel, meant to hold those society wished to forget. It was presented as a sanctuary for treatment, but inside, it quickly became a warehouse for the unwanted. Rooms meant for a few were packed with dozens. Patients were left in silence for days, strapped to beds, waiting for care that rarely came. In those years, mental illness was not understood. It was feared. What passed for therapy was often cruelty. Cold baths, isolation, restraints. And yet, darker whispers spread beyond the official reports. Patients who vanished without record. Nurses who spoke of cries in the night, long after the halls were emptied. Stories of staff who treated suffering as punishment, and punishment as entertainment. To the world outside, the asylum stood as a place of healing. To those within, it was a trap, one that some would never escape. It did not take long for the asylum to earn a reputation. Locals whispered that the place was cursed, that something inside those walls fed on despair. Patients spoke of voices calling to them in the dark, voices no one else could hear. One account told of a man who begged the staff to move him from his cell. He swore the whispers followed him, closer each night, until he could feel breath on his neck. Days later, he was gone. His door was still locked. The window was barred. The staff never explained how a man could vanish without leaving a trace. Stories like it spread quickly. The asylum was no longer just a place of the broken. It was becoming a place where reality itself bent. And for those inside, the question was no longer if they were losing their minds, but whether something else was taking them. Over time, the asylum drew more than patients and staff. Visitors, guards, even trespassers began to speak of things they could not explain. Shadows that stretched across empty halls, doors that slammed with no hand to push them, cries that echoed through the night, though no one could be found. One guard left his post after hearing footsteps circle him in the dark, though his flashlight showed only peeling paint and broken glass. A group of ghost hunters swore they caught a figure on camera, standing at the end of a corridor, motionless, only for the frame before and after to show nothing at all. Those who entered often left shaken, some refusing to return, unable to describe what they felt pressing in on them. Was it imagination, the weight of history, or were they walking among those who never truly left? Tell me, do you believe these were tricks of the mind or voices of the dead? The asylum's reputation soon drew investigators. A small team entered with cameras, meters, and recorders, determined to prove whether the stories were real. They mapped the halls with cold precision, marking each room, logging each reading. Their devices flickered with sudden spikes, as if the air itself carried hidden currents. In the wards, the temperature dropped without reason. Breath turned visible. The spirit box crackled with static until a voice pushed through. A single word, sharp and unmistakable. Later, in the recording, they heard something even worse. One of the investigators,
David,
standing in the dark, heard his name spoken clearly, as if whispered into his ear. The voice was not from his team. It was low, strained, and carried the weight of someone long gone. The equipment captured it all. Proof, they claimed, that the asylum was not empty. Proof that something still answered. Old reports pulled from the archives revealed what the walls had hidden. Patients strapped down for hours, their bodies locked in chains. Solitary cells where silence was forced until the mind cracked. Treatments that were less about healing and more about control. Electroshock, cold immersion, endless restraint. Behind closed doors, death was common. Some were recorded, others erased. Names struck from ledgers, causes left blank. Families told nothing more than their loved one had passed. Those who study the asylum believe the unrest of today is tied to those buried secrets. Each shadow, each whisper, each sudden cry in the dark may not be random. They may be echoes of pain too heavy to fade. And some say this place is more than haunted. They say it is a prison not for the living, but for the souls that never found release. The asylum's most infamous account came from a group who ventured into the surgical ward. They moved slowly, their lights cutting through the dust, their cameras recording every step. Then the sound began, footsteps, first behind them, then to the side, then in front, circling. Yet the hallway was empty. The lights flickered. One by one, their beams stuttered and dimmed. In that darkness, one member froze. He swore a hand clamped down on his shoulder, firm and unrelenting. When the others rushed to him, there was no one there. They fled, stumbling through the corridor, their breaths sharp and ragged. Later, when they played back the footage, the truth chilled them further. A scream erupted on the tape, long and broken, a sound none of them remembered making, a voice that belonged to no one alive in that room. That night, they learned the asylum did not welcome visitors. It claimed them. Not every explanation rests on suffering alone. Some historians uncovered whispers that a few of the staff turned to rituals in secret, believing they could draw power from the broken minds around them. Others point to the ground itself, claiming the asylum was built on land long feared, a place marked by violence long before the first stone was set. Theories divide those who study it. Some insist the shadows are the restless, the patients who never found peace. Others argue it is nothing more than suggestion, the mind bending under the weight of history. But there are those who believe something darker rooted itself here, something that used pain as fuel and still waits in the silence. What do you believe? Are these the voices of the lost, or is this place home to something far worse? Years after its doors were locked, a visitor entered with nothing more than a handheld camera. He walked the corridors, speaking softly to himself, until the lens caught what his eyes did not, a shadow rising at the far end of the hall, moving steadily toward him. The footage cut to black before it reached the frame. He never returned. The asylum has stood empty for decades, yet each night the echoes remind us it was never truly closed. The screams have not faded, the walls have not forgotten, and some say the asylum story does not end here. Another building, tied to the same history, waits in silence, holding secrets even darker than these. Would you dare spend one night in the old asylum? What do you believe haunts those halls? Spirits of the forgotten, or something far more sinister? Share your thoughts. Drop your theories below. I'll be reading them all. And if you want more true horror, more places where the past still breathes, subscribe and turn on the bell, because next time, we're going deeper.